Well, Donald Trump has shaken up the transatlantic relationship, whether it be NATO, climate treaties, or trade tariffs. And you can add cultural diplomacy to that list tonight. And that includes one of the world's best known and most coveted exchange programs, the Fulbright International Exchange. The Fulbright is named after a U.S. senator and has been promoting international understanding since the end of World War II. Well, now it's defending itself against deep cuts by the Trump White House. Today here in Berlin, hundreds of Fulbright scholars held a rally protesting plans to slash the budget by more than 70%. Fulbright has faced funding cuts before, but this time they say the survival of the flagship program is under threat. And we love full disclosure here on the day. And all three of us here at the table tonight are Fulbrighters, or I'm a former Fulbright scholar. I've got to my right here two current Fulbright scholars. Christina Greifenstein is a German who will be spending a year in the U.S. state of Georgia, correct? And next to her is James Thompson, an American from Georgia, who is currently on a Fulbright year here in Germany. To both of you, welcome. Are you worried? Could you be among the last Fulbrighters?
You know, Brent, I'm optimistic that we won't be. And as you mentioned, it does seem that the transatlantic relationship and programs like Fulbright aren't necessarily a very high priority for the Trump administration. But I know that many members of Congress, including members of Congress that often support President Trump on other issues, very strongly support Fulbright. And so I'm confident that those members, as they have in the past in other situations, will not be backing such drastic cuts.
Are you confident about that as well?
Yes, because I think intercultural exchange is just essential, and then nowadays, because we're living in a connected world, so intercultural exchange is essential, and that's why Fulbright will exist.
In the future.
In the future.
That's what a lot of people hope. James, how do you explain, though, why the White House, the Trump White House, is so intent on cutting programs like the Fulbright?
Well, you know, my first thought would be that they're trying to cut costs, but then you look at other issues and other initiatives that they have passed on opportunities to cut costs, and so that explanation kind of falls away. I think it kind of goes back to President Trump's own words in saying that he wants to focus on America first. And when you think about that kind of inward-looking mentality, I think that doesn't really make America stronger. I think in many ways it actually makes us weaker.
Well, yeah, isn't it America first to have a program like this where not only are you're sending Americans out to the world, but you're also inviting non-Americans to come to the U.S., right?
Absolutely, Brent.
It's soft power. I mean, could you imagine, Christina, spending a year abroad like this if you didn't get a Fulbright? I mean, would that be something that you could just, plan and do easily?
Well, I could definitely not imagine going to the U.S. and pursuing my master's there without a program such as Fulbright. Maybe in Europe it would be easier because we have different collaborations, but definitely not in the U.S.
How would you say that Fulbright has changed you or is changing you? I mean, you're starting yours, right?
Right, yeah.
James, you're in yours right now. So
about the middle, yes.
All right, so what's it done to you?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's just given me such an expanded network, both socially and then, in the future, professionally as well. And, when I think about my generation eventually kind of ending up in more and more positions of power and of influence, I think it's going to be so important for us to have these networks to work on, the problems that we already see developing now. I think those are going to be best solved working with people we've developed relationships with internationally.
I mean, do you see, is this a Democrat-Republican issue? I mean, the statistics say that usually people who vote Democrat tend to be the Americans that want to go abroad. So if we had a Democrat in the White House, do you think we'd be talking about program cuts?
I think it's probably less likely. I think it's less likely, but I think it's also important to point out that, a lot of the members of Congress I was referring to that I think are still going to support Fulbright are also Republicans. I got a very nice letter from one of the senators in Georgia congratulating me on my Fulbright, and as you're probably aware, both senators from Georgia are Republicans.
Yes, the world is aware of that. I'm going to ask both of you, if you could send a message to U.S. President Trump right now, what would it be? Christina, ladies first.
I would say that nowadays we should make bonds between each other rather than isolating each other from the others. So I would say that just go for it and make the exchange, because you can learn so much from the others by exploring the others and learn for yourselves by going to another country.
Yeah.
And that's what brings us forward in the future.
Very good. James, what would you say to President Trump?
Well, Brent, I was flipping through Der Spiegel a few weeks ago, which is of course, a German news magazine, and there was an article entitled "Danke, Donald," which, of course, "Thank you, Donald," is not a sentiment you often hear from many Germans. But the argument that author was making is that the U.S.'s kind of retreat from leadership in a lot of these international areas is forcing Germany to kind of, as the author said, grow up a little bit and take leadership in more areas. I think that I would tell President Trump that retreat that he is leading is changing the way that the U.S. is perceived in the world. It's changing the way the U.S. Engages with its allies and with the nations with whom we have, not so friendly relations. And I think that it's going to be up to the Fulbrighters and other young leaders of the future to make sure that relationship stays strong, no matter what the political leaders of today decide.
Yeah, well, you are both excellent, ambassadors for the Fulbright program. And, if it weren't for the Fulbright program, we wouldn't be sitting here, us three tonight, in the first place. So to both of you, Christina Greifenstein and James Thompson, thank you. I know this is your last night for the annual conference here in Berlin, so I'm sure you've got a party to go to. So we appreciate you interrupting that to be on the day. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you so much.